Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our second community meeting. I am Clint Rudy, the director of the Suffolk Public Library. And on behalf of the Library Advisory Board and library staff, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. We are very excited about this process, and I really hope that you will share as much as possible to make this new library a community space and destination. If you happen to miss the last meeting, we have the recording available on our library website, as well as the survey for adding your feedback for the polls. In addition, we'll have the recording for this meeting, hopefully by the end of the week, available if you'd like to review that, as well as the survey that will allow you to answer the polls there in case you have any issues. So to help guide this process and design our new library, we have hired the architectural firm of Quinn Evans. So I want to take the time now to introduce Andrea with Quinn Evans. Andrea?
Thank you, Clint, and good evening to everyone, and welcome to this community meeting for the Suffolk Downtown Library. So I'm Andrea Quilici, and I'm one of the architects with Quinn Evans. We are very excited to be here this evening and ready to listen to all your comments and suggestions that will become part of the design of your library. I would like to encourage all to be as active as possible this evening as we are here to listen to you. Please write your questions on the chat or ask directly questions at the end of our Q&A session. So this evening, after a quick introduction of the design team, we'll look at the project schedule, and then my colleague Jeff will summarize what we learned from the last community meeting. We will review together the program of the future library to understand what is important for you. And finally, Jeff will give you some interesting information on what we learned from the survey that was closed a couple of days ago. So at the end, we will have, as I said, an opportunity to answer all your questions in the Q&A session. So if you can go to the next. So this is the design team, and they will design your library. Chuck, the principal in charge, and Shannon, our senior interior designer, are on a staycation. So you might have virtually met them at the last community meeting. And this time it is Jeff Hoover from Tape Architects and I that will be with you tonight. So if you go to the next, Jeff.
Yes, great. One of the things that we'd like to do to get started is not only to introduce ourselves, but also to learn a little bit about those who are able to participate this evening. And so what I'd like to do is launch a poll, essentially to find out where you're from, where within Suffolk or beyond you might be from. And I can share back that information with you. It's also a way for us to test that the polling feature is working well for everybody. I would say if it doesn't, if there's some problem, you shouldn't worry because there's opportunity, as Clint said, to participate in the polling that we have tonight, also in an online survey form. So here, I'm just going to go back to this and launch the poll and see if you have any trouble participating in this little exercise to find out where in general the people are from, if they're from Suffolk, where within Suffolk, if it's outside of Suffolk, but maybe a Suffolk library user, that would also be interesting. And so let's see here. I think that about a little over half have figured this out already. Oh, a little bit more. That's good. Maybe a couple more. And that's pretty good participation. Maybe there's one person out there that hasn't figured it out, but I think that if I can just now share the results, you can see that we'll be able to garner information in the course of the meeting and also share it back to you as we go along. So with that, I think I can go ahead into the next part. Go ahead, Andrea.
Yes, so this is the schedule to complete your library. So we are right now at the end of the programming phase after several meetings, interviews, and surveys with the library leadership, staff, and you. So the next phase is a fun one. It's a design phase, and this will end in about 1 year. After that, phase, there is a bidding period when the contractor will be selected. And then construction will start in December 2021 and will last for about 15 months. At completion, there will be time for Clint and his staff to move in and get ready for a May 2023 opening.
Right.
Next slide. It's the interaction with you. So we already had a community meeting on July 7th, and Jeff will talk about what we learned from that meeting. And today is our last meeting of the pre-design phase. So Jeff, what did we learn?
Well, we've had a good series of interactions in different ways. First of all, from the last meeting, we learned a great deal. We began by asking this question about, have people identify where they go in the library and also where they tend to spend the most time. The listing here ranks the places most people go: new books, meeting room, adult print, audiobooks, etc. And then the second listing here now shows not only where they go, but where they choose to spend time. And this tells us a little bit about sort of the way the community currently uses the library and helps inform how we think about it going forward. A lot of people are going to the children's area, the meeting room, spending time in the new books, and of course, spending time at the tables and seating areas as well. So that's, the beginning, scratching the surface of the kind of information that we're beginning to garner in this information gathering stage, which is part of the pre-design services. Then we had a series of images, and in this exercise, we had everybody characterize a set of photos relative to these particular keywords: welcoming, family-friendly, comfortable, collaborative, and productive. From each set of images, like these for the welcoming spaces, we garnered insight about which special characteristics of space result in the sort of the most support or resonate with most people in Suffolk. And so while we showed these 6 images, in the end, the way people were excited about them showed up in this kind of a ranking with the most welcoming on the upper left and the least welcoming on the lower right. And then next we asked about images that are generally considered to be family friendly, showing this set. And here we see the images rank from most family friendly to the least family friendly among the images that we showed. Again, we're learning things as we go about the character of space. Then we asked about the comfort factor. Again, community members participating in the last meeting ranked these images like this. One thing it tells us that, for instance, is that there weren't any teens participating in the last meeting, since the teen space images were favorited less frequently, or they weren't favorited at all. And then this set showed collaborative spaces, which were ranked like this. So again, garnering information as we go. The last set of images were of spaces that might be considered productive. And unfortunately, there was a glitch last time, and we didn't get people to be able to weigh in on these images. So at this point, I'd like to ask you all who are with us tonight to participate in this exercise and rank these relative to which you feel the most productive. So study the images for a moment and decide which one seems to you like the most productive environment. And then I will open a poll, which will cover up the images, so get ready for that. Make your decision, and I'll launch the poll, and if you could please pick one, that would be great. And you should see the poll now. Maybe about half have decided. You can slide the polling question off to the side if you're looking at it, on your computer. Just click on the window and move it aside. If you're using your phone, you can also sort of exit the poll and then come back to it again. If you exit the poll, you'll see the pictures, and then you can return to the polling to actually make your vote and push the button that says submit or something like that. So far, we have decisions from about half of the participants. And that's great. So we have a little more than half. I'll wait for another moment or two to get additional commentary. In the the next part of tonight's meeting, will be kind of the heavy lifting for everybody, where we're going to probe your preferences to a larger degree and really put together as much of a sense of what interests you in the future library as we possibly can. So the polling is really an important mechanism for us. Again, the SurveyMonkey survey has the same questions on it. It doesn't have the images that we're seeing right now, but it will have the same questions. Okay, I think that we have over half, so I'm going to go ahead and end the polling and share the results. And it looks like, the upper left was the least favorite image, as it turns out, and image number 4 on the lower left was the most favorite as a productive space, and image number 6 on the lower right was somewhere, somewhere in the middle. Another exercise to report on from last time was that we were also learning about the future role the library should play in the community based on, these sets of words. We heard that the library as a place of learning is essential, but also that a place for events is also important, and slightly more important than just being a place for information. So learning and events and information all rank very high amongst those who were participating last time. So how are we using the information that we have heard, the kind of commentary we've gotten so far? Well, as Andrea was saying, we are in the middle of writing up the library building program. It's a document that will describe in words and in numbers what the future downtown library should be like. We have a good start in writing this up, but it really won't be completed until we garner more input from you all. So we're going to sort of solicit your perspective and also your help. We have a great deal of details sort of written about functions and goals, and the library leadership is helping us describe the functions pretty clearly. But what we'd like to get your input on tonight is the various goals that should be satisfied, or the outcomes that should be realized by the future library. For instance, let's look at the youth services area of the library. And on the right-hand side, you'll see a series of preliminary goals. And I'll just go through them. We have an image that we think begins to illustrate each of the points, not always finding exactly the perfect image for the point, but I think we can do a reasonable job. And so what we're seeing here, and as we go through and read these, think about whether or not this sounds right to you, because you'll have an opportunity to comment on it by voting on it a little bit later, by responding to the poll. So making kids feel that they are entering a very special space of their own is one of the goals. Establishing a family-friendly, stress-free space, which enables families with kids of different ages and interests to be able to learn and use the library comfortably side by side. Encourage creative play and inspire children's imaginations. And fill the technology gap that exists in families that don't have access to computers or the internet. And then support both formal education, that is access to materials and support of the school, and needed to complete homework assignments, as well as supporting the pursuit of individual interests. So those are some of the goals that are currently written into the program that we have right now. And when I launch this next poll, I would like you all to select the ones that resonate with you. Let me just pull this up, Youth Services poll, and you'll have to scroll down. Essentially, what I'd like you to do, as is indicated in the polling format here, is respond whether the idea is you're enthusiastic about it, or it just seems good, or you're kind of on the fence, you don't really have an opinion about it, or if it seems like a bad idea, or even more so, it seems like a horrible idea. So if you could just click on, each of these questions and indicate whether you like it, you dislike it, you don't care about it, etc. And you'll have to scroll because there are 5, and they may not all show on your screen at the same time. So take a minute and reread them and think about whether or not this is important to you. We will be, of course, documenting everything we hear tonight, and we'll be putting it into a report we'll be compiling for the library. So all of the feedback will be part of a record that we can reference, and you can as well as the design progresses. And we have about 2/3 of folks have decided. I know this is picking your brain to a kind of a deep degree, but it's going to be useful information for us. And there are, after this one, I think 6 more sets of spaces to look at with the same questions or with the same responses. Either you're enthusiastic, or it just seems good, or you're ambivalent, or seems bad, or it seems horrible. Now I'm just going to go ahead and end the polling and share the results so we can sort of see how things turned out. And 1 or 2 have ambivalence, but in general, it looks like we're learning that we're on the right track with this. And I'm not going to go through each one, but again, it will be compiled into a report that we can all review later on. Now I'd like to look at teen spaces. And the spaces, the kind of characteristics we're talking about here is the notion of creating a destination place in the community for teens to gather and socialize, a separate space within the library specifically for teens to be with other teens. Also, providing access to technology and library programming that encourages teens to discover new ideas and explore their interests. Showing some technology here, it's hard to showcase the programming part, but that would happen in the teen space as well. Encouraging teens to consider how they can select and pursue lifelong interests and careers as part of a goal that the library would support in its new configuration. Providing print and digital resources for homework help and providing the spatial resource for it, as we see here. Then providing some space for tutoring, group work, homework, club meetings, and collaboration between teens. So those are the goals, and I'm just going to, again, launch the poll for teens and get your responses to these 5 goals. And, I'll give us, 45 seconds to complete this. When you're listening to dead air, 45 seconds is a long time. But I think I'll just be quiet unless you go through it. I noticed in one of the comments in the chat is, I don't do children well. Perhaps if you don't also do teens well, it might be hard to have a perspective on this. But we do have a response from 2/3. So I think that I can end the polling here, and we can just look and see what we learned. It seems that, again, we're getting some enthusiastic support for the first 2, a little bit of ambivalence on item 3, enthusiasm, and seems good on 4 and 5. So this is good. So you can scroll through these and see those results. Okay, so now I'm just going to go and look at the next space on the list. And this is the 24/7 spaces. A component of the library concept is to have spaces that are broadly accessible and inclusive. And sometimes that means offering access to spaces and services at unusual times, not just the 9 to 5 business hours. So one of the goals we've been talking about is offering expanded hours and controls to allow access to some physical areas of the library at non-standard times. And then improving the capacity of the library to provide the appropriate size room for community meeting. And this is for all kinds of purposes. Could be for teaching and lectures and movies, other community events, as well as smaller scale events as well, committee meeting size spaces, and even small group study rooms as well. So that's the point 2. And then the goal 3 here is to serve meeting space needs whenever they arise, including during times when the rest of the library is closed. and to be ADA accessible and easily accessible by parents with young children and strollers. So those are the goals, and I will launch the polling for that aspect now. And again, we'll take about 45 seconds or a minute or so to collect your thoughts about these 24/7 spaces. Are these goals that would resonate with you personally, or also thinking of those who aren't with us tonight? Do you know that they would be something that others in the community would find particularly enticing? So think more broadly about these questions. It will be a library that is, for the entire community. So, okay, again, as we've hit like about 2/3, I'm going to go ahead and end the polling here, and remember to share the results so we can see how the support or lack thereof represents itself. And it looks to me like the first one is getting a sort of broad spectrum here, from enthusiastically supporting it down through at least one participant, or 8% here, saying that it seems like maybe not such a great idea. The second one gets enthusiastic support from everybody responding. Mixed results, although generally supportive about the third, and the fourth has relatively positive results as well. Okay, a couple more spaces to look at. Let's see here. Let's think about collections, of course. The goals articulated so far are continuously provide a fresh selection of newly obtained and highly popular items and materials displayed in an attractive manner. Encourage patron interaction with collection through interactive and attractive displays, including digital displays integrated into the collection. And offering mobile and portable technologies, some of it available through, as illustrated here, a self-service kiosk with a swipe of your card to be able to take away a laptop or tablet computer for use in the library. And facilitating comfortable, convenient, and timely access to online information resources. Those are some of the goals for the adult collection. And again, I'll pull up the polling and solicit your input about these 4 goals. And I think there are just 3 spaces for us to consider after this one. I did say, this was the heavy lifting part of the community participation for tonight, where we really are soliciting input on very particular areas of the library, and targeting to get input about what the final outcome should be in terms of the performance of the facility. So again, we have a little over 2/3 reporting back. So I will, and one more just snuck in, that's great, 75%. I will end polling and share the results here. People are generally enthusiastic about the concepts that are articulated here for goals for the collection. Maybe there's some ambivalence from folks who use the library for more than its collection. This library in the 21st century is, of course, much more than just a place to house the collection, although it does that as well. So let's look at the adult seating aspect of the library. And obviously, we want to make people comfortable, spend time in the library of all ages. And in adult seating, we have these goals: create opportunities for people of all ages to experiment, explore, evolve, and learn from one another. Allow focused concentration by multiple individuals in a comfortable space, promoting and supporting quiet study. So this is a alone together sort of environment we're showing here. And become the main place in the community for extended study, research, and creative work. Create an inviting and interesting community destination spot at which people will plan to meet with friends, neighbors, business contacts, and other acquaintances, a gathering space in that way. And then create an attractive space with natural light and maybe views of natural spaces outside the library. Let me launch the poll for this one. there it is, you should see it. Again, same exercise, thinking about the adult seating spaces in the library. We've covered teens and children, and this one is thinking about adults. It's a little over half. Comments are still coming in. Usually we get about 3/4, so I'll just hang on for a second or two while people complete their voting. And remember to submit your results. Okay, so a lot of you have completed the voting, and now you can see how it resonates in parallel with others. Enthusiastic support ranks high for the first 3 or 4 goals, or 5. So good. Again, we're seeing we're pretty much on track with several of these goals. Okay, so I'm going to go into the last couple of areas here. Local history and genealogy. And so the goals we're looking at here is to encourage patrons to recognize the significance of the library's historic materials by displaying them in a rotating collection. Another goal is to digitally capture distant past, recent past, and nearly current events as part of a relatively local record of the life and times of Suffolk citizens. And then protect the collection of books and artifacts of particular local significance in a way that displays them. And establish a climate-controlled and secure space for the library's variety of special collection materials. And I will launch that poll. About half have voted so far. And I'll just wait for a couple more seconds for the last 1 or 2. And I think that's a little over 80%. So I'll go ahead and end the polling, and remember to share the results. And we can see, the level of support for these various ideas. And again, we will be sharing in a published, probably PDF downloadable format, the results of this polling, and combining with it any comments we get through the online SurveyMonkey interface as well. So I'm going to remember to stop sharing results and talk about the next space, which is the creative and tech zone of the library. And some of the goals that we've had for this is to be a collaborative workspace where several individuals can work on projects and learn from each other. Access computers, software, and digital media equipment that provide library users with new and exciting opportunities. Incorporate hands-on production capabilities in a secure, comfortable, and compelling environment. And then make the library the best place in the community for supporting state-of-the-art digital and hands-on production creation of a variety of types. So I will launch a poll that I think will be for this type of space. Here we go. And please go ahead. All right, we have more than 2/3, so just another couple of seconds probably before we have the majority participating. Okay, I'll share this and we can see how it's stacked up. If you scroll through these, you'll see again, fortunately, we're getting some pretty good ratings on the enthusiastic support of the ideas that are shown here. And we'll be working to incorporate those into the program. So that was, again, sort of the heavy lifting part of the exercise for tonight. And it's really meaningful to us to garner input like this. And again, the web survey will help us as well. But truly, you've really just helped write the narrative that will describe the future library. And thank you very much. So this isn't the only avenue for input. As you know, we have had a online survey ongoing for, I was probably up for like almost 4 weeks, I think, in the end. And we garnered a lot of great input in that way. A great volume of input, not only in answers to simple checkbox type questions, but also a tremendous volume of narrative commentary to the open-ended questions, which really are useful to us in understanding what people really think. As opposed to just, you know, answering the question we ask. Sometimes we get responses that give us new insights as well. And then in addition to all of that, there were the efforts of the community ambassadors out of the community, you know, on a one-on-one basis with people with their comment cards. We got 84 more pieces of commentary back that way. So it's been very helpful, useful. One of the things we can learn from that effort is who's talking, who are we hearing from, and you can see that you know, we have good participation from a broad spectrum of ages, sort of in the middle of the age group, and you know, not so much at the end. So some commentary from seniors, but very little yet at the younger age end of the spectrum. So we'll be looking for opportunities to garner more input, you know, in those other age groups. We have a lot of response from people with school kids at home and people with preschoolers at home. So there's about a quarter of people have preschoolers at home, and maybe you know, trending towards 50% have school kids at home. Family size is tends to be larger than most, and with about half being larger than the national average. And we can see a fair number of households, more than a quarter, have seniors at home. So we think we're saying that there's a lot of multiple generations in households. We also learned that the library is a popular destination place for most people, ranking ahead of a coffee shop or cafe. And more than half go to the Morgan Library at least once a month. So there are a lot of library users out there. However, people who go to Morgan tend not to spend time there. Usually it's less than an hour. So there's something about the library which isn't encouraging people to dwell there very long. Interestingly, from the results that we've gotten, about 20% of the respondents do not currently use the library. So we will be interested to learn what that segment would expect in the future of the library, as the library seeks to be inclusive of all components of the community. So it'll be interesting to focus in on what their commentary is from the survey. The last point here shows that other library facilities in the area are more popular with people than is the current Morgan Library in downtown Suffolk, even though the location is convenient and people prefer to go elsewhere. We had in the survey three general questions about the existing library that will help us learn what to do with the design for the future library. And the questions are basically what works, what doesn't, and what's missing. On the next 3 slides, I put some quotes from people in the community in response to these questions. So what works in general is the location, the integration into the town, the helpful staff and presence of books, the access to technology, and the services and activities for children. There are many more comments, and all of them will be included in our survey analysis report. So if you don't see your particular quote here, don't worry, it is still embedded in our thought process. The list of what doesn't work is somewhat longer. The library is not seen as a very inviting place. And while access to technology is an asset, there isn't enough of it to satisfy the community need. Having meeting space is a positive, but the area available isn't really large enough. Spaces for children and teens are not separated from adults areas. And the library is too small, too dark, not accessible, has inadequate seating capacity, is too noisy, and just too crowded and drab. So those are a lot of the sort of the comments about what's wrong with the existing facility. Then in terms of features and spaces and services that people would like to add to the library, these are some of the quotes that came up. You know, places to spend time reading or chatting that are filled with natural light. quality children's spaces and useful technology, resources that support families, and resources that would support small businesses in the community. Again, there are a lot more comments than that we are hearing than these here, but these are representative ones, and they tell us something about how to begin to shape the library of the future. Additionally, we heard about what people want to actually do in the future library. I'm not going to go into all of these right now, but I just wanted to pull up some of the highlights. As you can see from the charts here, the green bars are what people like to do, and the red or orange bars are what people are disinclined about, and the blue in the middle is kind of what people are neutral about or ambivalent. So naturally, and not unexpectedly, browsing the collections, it ranks pretty high with everybody. People are excited to come to the library and browse the collections. And then behind that is attend a class or an event for adults. So not only a place to access information, but a place to learn, which we learned also from another part of the community meeting last time. The access to a learning environment is really important. Using the express checkout, people are enthusiastic about using, being able to check out materials on their own. And so those are like at the top three. And then we have a whole bunch that are kind of in a line here, beginning with study, read, or write by myself. So finding a place in the library that's comfortable for an individual to get their own thing done was important. But right behind that was accessing high performance and emerging technology. So having the best cutting edge technology available at the library is important. Spending time in a designated quiet reading room is important. And then right behind that is spending time with others in a cafe-like conversational space. So they're practically the same level of interest in these apparently diametrically opposed activities in the library. So accommodating both of them will be part of the design challenge. And then on par pretty much with all of these other ones is access to the local history and genealogy, and using the Suffolk archives and archival technology, ranking right up there with all these other points. And then being creative, having access to maker technologies and spaces in the library to be productive with others. And also then right behind that is bringing children to a class or event. And I would say that typically bringing children to a class or event is one of the things we hear is very important to most communities. And it is important amongst these results as well. But we also have these others which are on par with that very fundamental activity for most communities in terms of their library use, making sure their children have good opportunity for learning. All these other spaces are also, sort of ranking amongst them. From all of those previous points that we were looking at, I wanted to pull out a couple, which is browse the collections and spend time with others in a cafe-like conversational space. They both ranked pretty high, but if we parse the data that we have by age group, we also learned some interesting things. For instance, browsing the collection is relatively similarly popular with all age groups, from seniors to the crowd that's under 30. Everybody has enthusiasm for that. It's actually interesting that none of the lower end of the age group were unenthusiastic about it. There's no red in their graph. And then the cafe-like conversational space, perhaps not surprisingly, the younger the demographic that we asked this question of, the more enthusiasm there was for that in the library. And two other points to quickly look at here is that after an event at the library, would you spend time in the library if there were an appealing space and enough space to do that? And again, there's different results in terms of the demographic. Surprising to me was that the seniors responded less favorably to this, and as the demographic tends to be younger, there's more enthusiasm for this notion of attending an event and then hanging out together at the library. And then there's a question about lounge seating, a comfortable soft seat as opposed to sitting, upright at a table. And not surprisingly there too, that the younger demographic is much more interested in a more sort of loungy posture while being in the library than is the older demographic. Again, we have data like this for a whole host of points that we'll be looking at as we continue to write the program. So we have a lot of information which we've garnered from the community, but we also have information that we've realized through conversations with library staff. And of course, the library staff and leadership are very much involved in the process going forward. And these were mentioned last meeting as well, but I bring them up again to identify that the staff of the library is, while they're responsible for specific areas of library operations, they're also broad-minded in their thinking in terms of what they were saying relative to our interaction with them. The focus is not on their workspaces, but on ideas about developing new services and enhancing existing services and making sure that there's the right character of space where people can be free from distractions and not be bothered, and making sure that the library is welcoming to a broad spectrum of potential library users. And doing that will really make the library feel like it's really owned within the community. And this notion comes up, community ownership of library spaces, and really feeling like it is your own, and it isn't a place you're visiting. It's a useful part of your life. And inspiring civic engagement amongst teams is a very high-minded goal to hear, and then making provisions for creative space within the library, a maker space, tech space, etc., that could be used in the building. All part of making the library become the kind of place where, instead of coming for less than an hour, for the most part, the community will be inclined to come in and stay a while instead. So that's, again, we've garnered a lot of useful information, good perspective on what to make of the library. We haven't done any design work yet. That's still forthcoming. This diagram represents sort of all the spectrum of spaces that are currently being considered for inclusion in the library. And there, shows them kind of to the relative size to one another. But it is really just the very beginning point, and the real sort of heavy lifting for us in design begins after we have the program written and delivered, and commence on early design. So Andrea.
So we hope that your involvement does not stop this evening. We're planning 2 more meetings to talk about how we have interpreted all this information and how they are becoming your new library. So we will have a meeting to show you our ideas in late summer, and another one in the fall, winter, early winter, to show you the latest developments. And we hope you can participate and give us your feedback.
Right. So I'm going to do one more poll, Andrea, to ask this question. Do you want to actually participate if we have another meeting early fall and then maybe early winter? How many of you all anticipate you'd like to actually see the progress and weigh in on its development? And I don't have to allow a whole lot of time for this. It seems the people are responding very quickly.
It's an easy one.
Yes, I think so. Nobody has said no yet. So I can
that's good.
just tell you that I don't have to bother sharing results. I think 100% of the respondents are saying that yes, we would like to be part of it. So
that's very exciting.
So if you are interested, we would like to make sure you're aware of the opportunity. And a way to do that would be, to sign up for the library email newsletter. That way you'll get an email in advance, right, Clint, to advise of upcoming events.
Correct. And if you go to our website, suffolkpubliclibrary.com, the bottom left, all the way down, there you'll see e-newsletter sign up under helpful links. And that's the best way to get an actual email. But of course, we're going to advertise on our website, on social media, and other places as well.
Okay.
Perfect. So, well, to conclude, as you can see, this is a long journey. And this is that's only the beginning of this journey that we've started all together. And so we hope you enjoyed this evening, and we thank you all for your feedback, and feedback that will help us, to design your new Suffolk Downtown Library. So thank you all for your engagement tonight, but also for your future engagement. Please spread, the news about these upcoming meetings, talk to friends, relatives, whoever is, around you, and invite them to participate to the next meeting. So give the feedback, go to the website of the library, and give feedback, or online if you cannot participate to these events.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for attending, and as Andrea just shared, we will have the recordings of meeting 1 and meeting 2, as well as the SurveyMonkey polls available for you, so please feel free to fill them out, and feel free to reach out to us as well, and I hope you have a pleasant evening.
Thank you.